I have not been to Minnesota in probably 20 years.
Bring gas. Welcome to Flagrant Howls, a Minnesota Timberwolves lifestyle podcast.
Alert, alert. Things are happening. Things are happening on trade deadline day, Thursday, and the National Basketball Association. The Minnesota Timberwolves have acquired from the Chicago Bulls, according to all of the reports, including our own Doogie texting in dangerously from his moving vehicle, Ayo Dosunmu. Go get fitted for your Timberwolves uniform down the stretch here, young man. You are a Minnesota Timberwolf. We'll get into the details, what it means for other potential moves. Is this it today for the Timberwolves? I don't necessarily think it is. But a shout out to Butcher and the Boar, Judd, one of our favorite dining places in Minneapolis.
So Tim Connolly, busy day, right? He gets done today. He leaves his office at Target Center.
Cocktail.
He needs a cocktail, but more importantly, he needs a delicious meal to reward himself for a great day of trading. He should go to Butcher and the Boar. And you know what? I bet he has been there because we have as well. And I'm going to tell you right now, you talk about a dining experience. You talk about like a great date night. You know what? Valentine's Day. It's coming up. Make the call today. Reserve your spot. In fact, you know what? No, go scan the QR code. Better yet, Butcher and the Boar is a fantastic experience. I mean, heck, for just great food, but also, again, for a date night, a party, whatever it is, Butcher and the Boar, great craft cocktails as well, great beer, as we can attest to, great service as well. So Butcher and the Boar is where you are going to want to go for a delicious, delicious meal, one of the best in town, and that is in the North Loop.
Yeah. Okay, so the news is, and it continues to move fast. There are tentacles to this, but the Timberwolves, after, by the way, securing their first win in Toronto since 2004 last night, down by 20 points, and Anthony Edwards gets chided by the crowd in Toronto with like 3 minutes left after an air ball from the wing, and he gives the let's hear some more, and then 10 seconds later picks a pocket, drives down for the go-ahead dunk, and they never look back. But the Wolves acquire from the Chicago Bulls one of their many young talented guards, Ayo Dosunmu. It's an expiring $7.5 million contract. He is like 26 years old. He has gradually improved out of Illinois. He's a hometown guy, Illinois, Chicago guy. And I think this is now his like 6th year in the NBA. And gradually, year by year, he has become one of the better three-point shooters in the league. He's at 45% on like 4 or 5 attempts per game this season. He is one of the Bulls' most reliable ball handlers. He's not a point guard, but he's a shooting guard who can handle the ball. And he actually has one of the lower turnover rates of anyone on the current Timberwolves team as you put him on the roster. And he's just a guy that, as the Wolves are looking for anyone other than Naz Reid to come off the bench and give you anything on offense, Ayo Dosunmu checks that box. We can discuss to what extent they would be able to give him a contract beyond this season. He's surely due to make more than $7 million. But then they also acquired Julian Phillips, former second-round draft pick. Celtics routed to the Bulls. He went to Tennessee, old Chip Scoggins territory down there. He's like a 6'6" wing player who is a rotation guy who might give you 10 minutes. I don't know a whole lot about Julian Phillips' game, but he's under team control through next year. And you send out to the Bulls Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and 4 second-round picks. So it's kind of like Ayo Dosunmu is the centerpiece of this trade. He fills a major need for you, regardless of what you do going forward the rest of the day here. But you kind of wave the white flag on Rob Dillingham. Leonard Miller's been this intriguing development project now for 3 years. You basically swap out the Leonard Miller development slot with Julian Phillips for the next year and a half, who's an actual rotation player right now. So you preserve a little bit of roster value from that perspective. And then I think I saw something where the Bulls have been super active, just trading everyone left and right. This is the second time in the last 2 days the Wolves have made a trade with the Bulls. That they've now acquired 9 second-round picks in this trade cycle. And they moved Conley over to, was it Charlotte? Conley now could get bought out and maybe come back to the Wolves. But the Wolves still have, according to my roster math, 2 open roster spots. There's 15 roster spots. They have 13, I believe, currently active players filling in those roles. And technically, all of the pieces, except for maybe like Dillingham, that were being talked about in a Giannis deal, Jaden McDaniels, Naz Reid, the Julius Randle Gobert pieces that might have to go out for value to get picks, Yohan Beranger, all of those are still intact. So technically the Giannis trade could still be alive, but the reports are gravitating more toward the Bucks might just wait until the summer to consummate this thing. So interesting.
And it does make, to me, way more sense for the Bucks to wait and do it in like June and build up instead of trying to dump a guy at the deadline. But this trade again, I mean, Tim Connelly's ability, not just from the scouting standpoint, but also from the cap standpoint and the management of the roster continues to be outstanding. Like this is, we talked about this potential trade almost exactly, I think, aside from the second round picks. But like this makes perfect sense. And it leaves the Wolves in position to make another trade today, which, as you alluded to, Phil, wouldn't surprise me. I said this before we started. I got a feeling with the way he's been playing of late, Julius Randle knows something.
Yeah.
Now, I do not think that's a Giannis trade today, but I do think that there is a real chance that we get one more trade. And one of the things I like about this, too, is Tim Connelly. You know what? Tim Connelly, who's from Baltimore, is about as anti-Minnesota type of guy as you can possibly be. You know why? Because he looks at a roster of a team that's been to back-to-back Western Conference Finals, of a team that has been maddening at times this season, but still has, a successful record. And he doesn't say, let's stick with this. This should work. He says, to hell with it. Yeah. And he moves guys. You know what? He trades up. He trades up with Portland, takes Dillingham at 8. And instead of saying, you know what, my reputation here is at stake. We're going to play him, and we're going to find out. He's like, it's not working. That's fine. Makes this trade. The way Tim Connelly operates in some ways like a trade assassin. Like he's got no conscience at times. And I absolutely love this. Like he was in, there's no question, and he still might be in, on Giannis, right? But, okay, it might not happen. All his eggs aren't in that basket. He just pivots, and he might pivot again. It's just, watching this guy operate, to me, is a real pleasure, because I love executives that don't look at their roster and say, it's good enough. They look at it and say, what's not good enough?
Yeah. He's probably the most aggressive general manager or president of operations type that we've ever seen in recent Minnesota sports, right? I mean, just every year there's some big thing lurking around the corner. Yeah. And they've only made a couple little tweaks on the margins here so far as they sniff around in the weeds and sort of try to figure out what's possible. A couple updates here from NBA insiders that are relevant to the Timberwolves. Brian Windhorst, who's just been awesome on this entire Giannis watch. It's funny because Shams is the transaction guy, but Windhorst is the information and context guy. And it feels like Windhorst actually has more relevant, detailed information about what's happening, but Shams is the one that is like, he's knighted as like when the actual transaction comes through, it's Shams that gets to put the detailed tweet out or cut and paste it or whatever it is. But Wendy says on ESPN, as we're recording this right now, we're live on the Flagrant Howls YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button, that like button if you enjoy this podcast. He said his reaction to the Timberwolves landing Ayo Dosunmu is, you can tell Minnesota is not getting Giannis today. Mm-hmm. And there's some other steam that coming down the stretch late here that maybe Portland and Cleveland are teams to watch on the Giannis front. So we'll see how the next few hours play out. Bobby Marks, friend of the Score North Network.
Doogie's guy.
Yep, Doogie's guy. So Bobby Marks, noted former NBA capologist, says, pre-free agency strikes again with the Timberwolves acquiring soon-to-be free agent Ayo Dosunmu. without making the trade, it would have been highly unlikely that the Timberwolves could have signed him as a free agent because they're over the cap. They would have only been able to give him like some sort of mid-level exception or lower. And if his value is higher than a mid-level exception, then like, sorry, you don't have any cap space. But because they now have his rights, that means they have his bird rights, which means you can re-sign one of your own players and stay over or exceed the salary cap in a new deal. So this might be laying some groundwork for Ayo Dosunmu, saying, we want you long-term. We know that you're a free agent, but we can get you the money that you want and deserve, and you can stay here and play for one of the 5 best teams in the NBA and play with Anthony Edwards. Another thing that's being bandied about right now among multiple high-level NBA reporters is, and this was before the Ayo Dosunmu trade, but I think it still holds truth, that if the Timberwolves, and I'm kind of aggregating like 2 or 3 different sources of information here, if the Timberwolves don't wind up with Giannis today, they could pivot to Ja Morant, is what the steam is.
Who they supposedly have been tied to now for about 2 months.
Yeah. And I know we've had some discussions about Ja Morant as a potential toxic figure, a guy who has had a falling out with his coach and organization, a guy who his immature behavior off the court or defiant behavior has gotten him suspended, and a guy, quite frankly, whose game on the court has eroded quite a bit too. Maybe the Timberwolves see something and say, actually, if this dude had a change of scenery and played next to Anthony Edwards, things might be different. I do think there's a lot of volatility involved in a decision like that, although Tim Connolly has built up a ton of credibility. But that trade would almost certainly be, maybe with a couple other bells and whistles, I think the framework of it would be Julius Randle out and Ja Morant in. So that's something to keep an eye on here over the next few hours as well. And that would give you, if that was your big move, that would do 2 things. Between Ja Morant and Ayo Dosunmu as well, along with Anthony Edwards, you'd feel a lot better about your offense, and you'd feel a lot better about your ball handling. And if you shipped out Julius Randle, it would open up more space for Naz Reid to start finally after all these years of us speculating, and Naz Reid's been playing his ass off mostly for the last 3 months. Mm-hmm. And I think it would move Jaden McDaniels much higher on the offensive pecking order as well. And it would open up a spot for Yohan Beranger to play regular rotation minutes, because Finch clearly doesn't feel comfortable having 4 bigs in his rotation. As evidenced last night, Beranger did not step foot on the court.
What does your bench look like in this potential?
For a Julius Ja trade?
Yeah.
So let's see here. Your starters would be Rudy Gobert, Naz Reid, Jaden McDaniels. I think you'd probably keep DiVincenzo, Anthony Edwards. No, actually, I'm sorry. Ja then with Anthony Edwards.
DiVincenzo off the bench.
And then DiVincenzo and Ayo Dosunmu, a couple of sort of shooting guard wing type guys, or DiVincenzo as kind of a ball handler as well, as your 2 main gunners off the bench. And Beranger would become your 3rd big. And big is kind of relative, but like Gobert, Naz, and Beranger would be your 3 main bigs, with Jaden playing up a role in some spots. And then, I mean, hell, last night, Bones Highland, hey, dude, you're officially the 2nd point guard on the depth chart now. And he comes out and was awesome last night in Toronto. So you could still pull that lever, too. I love the Dosunmu trade. I know it's like the Dillingham thing wound up kind of blowing up in your face, but you're not going to bat 1,000. But especially if they can keep Dosunmu long term, I kind of love it. He helps you down the stretch more than like Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and those 4 second-round picks aren't helping you in the playoffs. So Dosunmu is.
Or
Dosunmu
right
is
now.
gonna play. Right.
Or presently.
They're not helping you in Toronto last night.
No.
Exactly.
No. I think the most important thing when you do, especially like with a top 10 pick, when you whiff, you have to realize it quickly. Because like if you had said, you know what, we're going to give Dillingham a chance, but you really don't play him much, right? His value is depreciating every single day. So I think what this does is this sort of jumps in front of saying he might be fine elsewhere. I mean, the Bulls can play him now if they want to. Mm-hmm. They can lose games and find out if he can develop. But one of the most important things to me about an executive is how quickly are they willing to pull the trigger on a potential mistake, especially a draft pick, and try to recoup. So like it's not apples to apples, because in football you don't get the amount of trades made, so you can't just turn around and trade a guy and get much back. But in this case, you do, and in this case, I think it's smart. And look, we all went into today, and it's not done yet though, thinking, can this team gear itself up a little more to be a better playoff roster? And I think we're all pretty confident the answer would be yes. But now that it's playing out, the answer is definitely yes.
Yeah, like another thing to discuss here is if this was the last move they make, this is it. They basically said goodbye to maybe Conley comes back.
Yeah.
On a buyout. There's also a fruitful buyout market that's forming here. I mean, Lonzo Ball is going to get bought out. Now, Lonzo Ball hasn't made a shot to save his life since the injuries, but he still provides. He's a big defensive ball handler who can grab rebounds. He's available in the buyout market. I think Kyle Anderson might be available in the buyout market, another familiar name. And there's going to be 2 or 3 other guys too as the smoke sort of clears out from this trade deadline. And like I said, they've got 2 open roster spots. You could bring back Conley and then somebody else in the buyout market. And that's when they were a second apron team a year ago, they were not really able to participate in the buyout market. Chris Paul, I think, is going to get bought out. I saw that yesterday.
Yeah, he got traded to Toronto, right?
Yeah. I don't know.
I'm good on Chris Paul, just to be very clear, but yes.
Would you rather have Chris Paul or Conley for your buyout? Conley? Yeah.
Conley, yeah. I don't trust Chris Paul.
Yeah, if it was like 3 years ago, I'd still be maybe in on Chris Paul.
Mm-hmm.
But I guess my question to you is, other than a buyout guy here or there, if this was it, and they've decided, all right, we kicked the tires on the big stuff, we even flirted with a John Morant thing, but we're going to go starting lineup, same as it's been. Rudy, Julius, Jaden, Dante DiVincenzo, Anthony Edwards, and then Naz Reid off your bench. Naz Reid, Ayo Dosunmu. That's a legit 7-man grouping right there.
Yes.
With Bones Highland and Yohan Beranger. Jalen Clark has kind of fallen further down the pecking order now again.
Yeah.
Situationally, I could see him being a defensive pest in this rotation.
Mm-hmm.
But if they didn't make another move, would you be okay with that? Would you be mad at Tim Connelly?
No, I would not be mad at all. No. In fact, I would say this. If they don't make another move, they have improved at the 2 areas probably that we talked about the most of you need to upgrade. Probably most importantly, starting with the bench. Like Finch's distrust of young players is not going away, and he might be 100% right. But, the fact is you just didn't have a viable bench. You basically had Naz and Bones. The Bones thing, I think, especially after the way that he played against the Raptors on Wednesday night, I think Bones Highland, look at what he did. But my contention with a guy like Bones is he can have really good games. He can certainly play a role. But if you are like, okay, we are going to put our stock in Bones, that blows up in your face. Because you know what? Guys like that have gotten to the place that they are in their career ordinarily for a reason. So Bones definitely has a place on this team. But if you were to have not made this move today and said, well, you know what? After what we've seen, it's enough. I would say, really? And in the playoffs, really? So, no. If they don't make another move today, I think Tim Connelly, because the Giannis stuff is just big game hunting. It's fun. But yeah. I think Tim Connelly has done enough to improve this team to a place where I feel pretty comfortable. And also, and this is a team thing, you need to play far more consistently. But I don't know that's a Tim Connelly thing. I think that's more of a players thing and coaching thing than that has to do with what you're given by the guy who's shopping for the groceries.
One other interesting thing off the Ayo Dosunmu acquisition. So next season, the projected mid-level exception. So if you are over the cap, and they're below the first apron. So the over the cap non-taxpayer mid-level exception, which allows teams, hey, you're over the cap, but here is a slot for you to still sign a player or multiple players in free agency. The slot value for the mid-level exception is projected to be about $15 million. And Ayo Dosunmu is eligible, according to a couple capologists on Twitter here, including, I want to give him credit here, Yossi Goslin is one of them too. So he's eligible to extend for $17.3 million per year average annual value, which is above the mid-level exception. And so if he gets the max of what he's eligible for in an extension and he was a free agent, the Wolves would not be able to afford him on a mid-level deal. So this is if they plan to keep Ayo long-term, this was the only way to do it, was to trade for him and get a deal done for like 3 years, $50 million. Savvy.
It's very savvy. But here's the thing too. So Conley is, it feels like ordinarily about 3 steps in front of the rest of us and the world in thinking. Like I am not convinced by any means, unless he is traded today and commits, that the Giannis trade is off the table. Like I think the Bucks would be much smarter to wait. Like there's no hurry. He's not happy. Okay, that's too bad. But he's got no there's no protection from a trade. There is no like we have to trade him by this afternoon. So I would say this: unless the Timberwolves win a championship and decide, you know what, we are good, we want a championship, I would not be surprised if this roster has a different complexion again going into next season, based on the potential that a Giannis trade, I think, cannot be dismissed. This is Tim Conley.
Update on that front. According to Windy.
You're right, though. He has become that's a sneaky. He's the guy. I like you.
He is. He's super plugged in, like
like
organically plugged in, not transactionally plugged in. I mean, let's just face it. I feel like Shams has been actively in Giannis's camp, trying to like push things that aren't necessarily out.
Oh, he is, no question.
So according to Windy, the Minnesota Timberwolves have currently moved on from their pursuit of Giannis Antetokounmpo. At least for today, for like the trade deadline. Now if he's still available this summer, we'll see. But according to Windy, with 4.5 hours until the trade deadline, the Timberwolves have moved on from their pursuit of Giannis.
So all the players can calm down now.
Everyone can take a deep breath.
Although I still don't know that Julius is safe, but that's a different story.
Yeah. The other thing too that is an interesting factor is Jaden McDaniels has taken a couple huge steps in areas this season. He's been awesome through the trade deadline rumors, and he even acknowledged last night in Toronto, I check my phone all the time. The fact that it's been inundating him and he's not avoiding it, and he's elevated his play through these distractions, I think is a great sign for him and his future. Mm-hmm. There's a good chance that Jaden McDaniels' value goes up over the next 3 months as he continues to play well. Maybe they win a couple more playoff series and he continues to be this highly efficient scorer. Maybe his role elevates more, even if they were to trade Julius or something. And by the time we get to summer, guess whose value actually goes down? Giannis. Because you won't have that. Like right now, anyone that would be trading for Giannis is trading for this year's playoff run too. And then next year, there's a full year of his contract, followed by a player option in that third year. So really, anyone who would trade for Giannis this summer would effectively be trading for 1 year of Giannis.
Yeah, you'd probably want to know what his intention is. Like, because I think that at that point in time, you probably, if you're going to trade for him, go talk to his representation and say, let's start to talk about what the parameters might look like of some type of extension. But I agree completely. And look, Jaden McDaniels has turned himself into a really good player. The only thing that drove me crazy from the Wolves fan standpoint was, well, you can't trade this guy, and you can't. Like, this is not how Conley thinks. And so Jaden is very good. What the train of thought from the Minnesota sports fan, including guys like us, that drives me crazy because we're so used to it is, I really like that guy. He's good. You can't trade him. I've got his jersey. Tim Conley doesn't care about that, which I actually appreciate.
Yeah, and it's funny because there was a press conference, I think it was like the preseason one, and he talked about how there's going to be different iterations of teams around Anthony Edwards throughout his long career with the Timberwolves. That's the way he looks at it. He looks at it as the Timberwolves are Anthony Edwards and all the fans and the guys running the team, right? And anyone that's not Anthony Edwards is available for the right price. And now Jaden is the top shelf asset. And I think what makes it hard for people outside of Minnesota that don't watch him on a nightly basis, they look at his numbers and say, what the hell? It's like, 12, 15 points a game the last couple years. He's like a good defensive player, I guess, but that's not a flashy thing that you see on national TV every other night, and people don't really understand. But if that dude were to be unleashed in a higher pecking order role on a different team, like if you gave him 5 or 6 more shots, anywhere close to that level of efficiency, he'd be Kawhi Leonard. Like we've been calling him kind of jokingly Diet Kawhi Leonard on this show for many, many years. If you put him in a spot and said, hey, we need you to be like our first or second offensive option, he'd score 25 points a game at elite level efficiency, and he's guarding the opposing player's best scorer too. So, and his value, like I said, could go up over the next few months as you maybe wade back into the trade waters. So, yeah, if you're just joining us, by the way, welcome in here on trade deadline morning on the Flagrant Howls YouTube channel. Click that subscribe button if you're new. Welcome to this Timberwolves lifestyle podcast. We got Judd Zulgad, the sports dad, Declan Goff, our producer. I'm Phil Mackey. And the big news is the Wolves have, according to Brian Windhorst, they have removed themselves from Giannis Watch 2026, but they did acquire Ayo Dosunmu. Just an awesome spark plug, high efficiency, good 3-point shooting, bench scoring option. Julian Phillips, who's kind of a back end of the rotation, 6'6", 6'7" wing guy, but they give up Rob Dillingham, Leonard Miller, and 4 second-round picks on the way out. So Giannis' dream probably dead. Maybe there's still something else on the Julius Randle for Ja Morant type front, and then the buyout market. But they did, without doing anything else, their rotation is better now than it was 48 hours ago, period.
Yeah, definitely is. And I sort of agree with you. I don't think they're done.
Yeah.
I don't think they're done. I think there's one more move.
I think there's for sure, they're going to fill a roster spot or two. So I think there's for sure a buyout guy coming. And people have also mentioned the last day or two, and I saw in the chat, Chris Middleton. I think he's like in his mid-30s now, but Chris Middleton might be a buyout guy. So that's someone to keep an eye on.
Okay.
Obviously was a lot better 5 years ago when he was younger and was the second best player on a Giannis-led Bucks championship team. And then I think I saw Pat Connaughton in the comments was another, just looking for some shooting off the bench on the buyout market. But there's absolutely going to be a buyout guy or two, and the Wolves can explore that. So the Lakers just got Luke Kennard. Speaking of sharpshooters, so this is like one of the most active trade deadline weeks.
It's incredible
ever. It's just crazy, man.
It's incredible.
So, all right, dudes. Any other thoughts on this before we'll come back later after the trade deadline and we'll recap everything and react to either what they did or didn't do. But any final thoughts here on this morning episode?
I got a question, actually. What's your opinion of Julius's game of late? Like, what's going on here?
Dude, he goes through these stretches where he just looks mopey and sloppier than usual, disengaged, not motivated, weird. Yeah, I think, and we know that he's battled issues with like mental health throughout the years, yeah. And I don't want to like poke and make light of it, but it sometimes looks like he's 50% of himself from an engagement standpoint. And last night, man, doing nothing on defense, and maybe the trade deadline stuff gets to a guy like him who maybe gets in his head sometimes. He's been mostly a really good asset for the Timberwolves. I still wonder, can you win a championship when Julius Randle is effectively like put in a position to be your second guy next to Anthony Edwards? Mm-hmm. Or does moving him for a different piece open up something much more high upside where now Naz Reid is stepping into a bigger spotlight, Jaden McDaniels is stepping into a bigger spotlight? I'm curious about that. I almost wonder if it just kind of opens things up more. And by the way, like, you wouldn't just be extracting Julius Randle from this thing, which would be a mistake. You'd be replacing him with one thing or two things that are expanding your rotation and maybe giving some shine to a couple guys that have even higher upside. Which I believe Jaden McDaniels deserves that at some point, whether it's here or somewhere else.
It feels like the way that he has played, that he definitely, I think a year ago, there would have been a little bit of trepidation about that. It doesn't feel to me like that trepidation should exist now. Like, if we give him a bigger role, can he handle it? A year ago, I would have said, I think so. I'm not positive. Now I'm much more confident about it.
Yeah. D9, the one on the YouTube comment says, is Kyrie available? Absolutely, he's available. I mean, the Mavericks just traded the Mavericks, man. 12 months ago, they traded Luka for Anthony Davis and some other stuff.
Nico. What's
then
Nico
Anthony
doing
Davis
now?
gets shipped off.
What's
hiding.
Nico doing?
He's hiding somewhere. Is he ever going to work? And there's no chance that dude ever works in a basketball front office again. But Kyrie he's recovering from the knee injury. And there's been some report, like there was one report that said he's not going to play before the break. Well, yeah, I don't think that was ever, especially for a Mavericks team that is just irrelevant now. But he's going to get traded at some point, whether it's in the next few hours or sometime this summer. I guess I'd be pretty shocked if the Mavericks were going with this kind of Cooper flag and we're going leaning into the young thing, and then Kyrie's going to stick. Like Kyrie's going to want to play for championships.
Yes.
But could you imagine if it were just in a vacuum, would I rather have Julius Randle, who's a little younger than Kyrie, but Julius Randle for like the next, 2 or 3 years, or Kyrie Irving next to Anthony Edwards with Jaden and Naz and Rudy in that starting lineup? Or maybe you swap out Rudy at some point because he's getting into his mid-30s. But Kyrie as just a running mate with Anthony Edwards for a couple years is a really interesting idea.
Yeah. Now he probably, well, with the Mavs, he almost certainly won't play again or won't play this season. But I wonder where he's at. Like if he got traded today, could he come back in April? I mean, he'd be rusty. He's not exactly a young guy. It was an ACL. So like for the future, I think that could be a fun discussion. I would certainly see it as being way too big a risk, though, to put any stock on him helping you in 2025-26.
It does feel like probably more of a summertime trade.
Yes.
If that were to happen.
Yes.
The Chicago Bulls, I think I saw, now have 11 guards and nobody above 6'8" officially on their team. Or no, 12 guards now. 12 guards.
Start them all and just see what happens. Start them all at the same time.
It's one way to tank. Although Leonard Miller's like 6'10", so now maybe I guess they have 2 guys now that are over 6'8". But yeah, that's one way to tank. Just put a bunch of 6'4" dudes out there and don't get a rebound all night. Okay, the Bulls have added 9 second-round picks in the last week. They now have 14 total second-round picks apparently in, I don't know like what time period that is, but go Bulls. Nice job over there.
Sell them. Just sell them.
That's what
Just
David
start
Kahn
selling.
used to do.
I know he did. No, nobody loves selling a second-round pick like Kahn.
So, all right, dudes, we'll put a pause on it for now. This breaking news episode of Flagrant Howls. Ayo Dosunmu, major value coming in off the bench. If they don't do anything else, their team is better than it was a couple days ago. But they might still do something else in the next few hours, and we'll recap it one way or the other later on. We'll hit you with a second episode of Flagrant Howls today. But click that subscribe button. Click the like button if you enjoy these breaking news episodes, and the bell notification button on YouTube as well. You can also find Flagrant Howls on Apple and Spotify, where you can help us by giving us a 5-star rating and a positive review. We'll see you guys in a few hours on trade deadline day here in the NBA.